Today on News from the Crabby Coffee Shop, we finally read your emails. We talk about the generation gap. Amy's really ticked off about something. And then we're going to end early and go home and take a nap. Let's get started. I'm exhausted, Daniels, and it's your fault. Good morning, dummy. Good afternoon.
Why are you exhausted?
Because yesterday at 4:55 p.m. you called me.
Oh, I'm sorry. What's the window?
Panic set in because I had forgot all about News from the Crabby Coffee Shop. Have not given it one thought since last week.
Okay, time out. Time out.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing this with, just forget the gap. How long have you been doing this podcast?
A few years. Took a year off.
Okay.
A while. Yeah.
And I'm just a Johnny come lately that comes in to listen to you being crabby because that's my favorite thing about you. How is it that I remembered that we have a show today and you don't?
I think it's my comfort level. Before, I didn't have a comfort level at all, and I would be filled with anxiety from the second the show ended on whenever we did it, Tuesday or Wednesday, until the next show began.
Okay.
And now I think I'm just comfortable with it, and I didn't give it any thought. And then you called, and we talked a little bit about it, and then I could not sleep last night. I was up every 5 minutes.
Because you were suddenly worried?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I'm not ready.
I love you so much, but you are one of the most lovably neurotic people I have ever met.
The only thing I'm ready for is to just bitch about how much I'm sick of Gen Xers.
Oh, please do. I mean, honestly, Kenny, my favorite Kenny is the bitching Kenny.
Well,
this evolved. I'm going to be empathetic. Not my favorite Kenny. I mean, as a human, that's great. But
I don't like being crabby.
Funny
and I
when
don't
you're
like bitching.
Crabby.
But unfortunately, I don't like anybody.
Well, that's a much bigger problem that a therapist probably needs to be called in to handle.
I can't hang out with anybody because the people I like drive me crazy. And we're going to get to that.
Okay.
But we've been meaning to read emails. We're going to get to that too. But first, you said something about something before we started.
It's not a huge deal.
No, it is a huge deal, and it needs to end. It really ticks me off.
Here's the thing. When it's this cold, as we're recording this podcast, I think it's like 5 below zero.
Yeah.
And I want to put gas in my car.
That's all we want to do.
I pull the car up to the gas pump. I get out of the car, and I want the gas in the car as fast as humanly possible because I don't want to stand there, right?
Right.
So I go to the gas pump. This happens all the time. Some places are worse than others. I swipe my card, and I just want to pump gas. I swipe my card, and it asks me 17 questions. It's like, well, are you a member of Bloopity Blop Club? No, I'm not. No. And then it's cold, so it doesn't even register. You're like pushing really hard on the thing to get it to. No, I'm not a member of that club. And then it's like, are you a member of this club? No, I'm not a member of that club. Do you want a car wash? No, it's -5.
Amy, do you want a receipt?
Do you want a receipt? Do you want an oil change? Do you want a coupon? It's just by the time you get through those questions, it's been a solid, I know this doesn't sound like much, but it's been a solid minute of standing in -5. Why do I have to be interrogated by a gas pump? That's all I'm saying.
And do you follow the rules and stand by the pump, or do you get back in your car?
Here's the thing about me, and it's not a good thing. I don't follow rules very well.
Yeah.
So I know I'm not supposed to get in my car but I still have to answer all those questions.
Right.
Then I get in my car. I know it's not legal, but you have to.
How about the dead of summer and you're at a pump that has a TV station blaring or, a fake, it's not a real TV station.
Right, it's video.
But it's news or video or music or advertisements. Do you stand there and watch it?
I mean, if I'm just like putting in a half tank and it's only going to take 15 seconds, yeah, I'll watch it. It's fine. It's better
How
than nothing, I guess.
if you were an advertiser, would you advertise on gas pumps like that with video?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think it really varies about who pays attention and who doesn't. I guess it depends on what it costs. I have no idea.
That'd be interesting to find out. I bet you buy in bulk. So you buy all, like, say, the holiday stations.
Right, or all the quick
along
trips
I-90, the corridor between Minneapolis and Fargo or something like
But
that.
you know, I mean, I'm just like, do we have to have inanimate objects try and start a conversation? Just
Right.
let me pull my gas.
Yeah.
It's cold.
One workaround, and you can't get this in the Twin Cities at all. I can get it here where I live, is you just pick up the hose, the gas gun thing, you put it in your vehicle and you start pumping, and then that automatically assumes you're going to pay inside. So you can get away with paying and pumping first and paying inside later.
Oh, yeah. We don't do that in the Twin
No,
Cities.
you can't do that.
Plus, you can't get
market.
around the questions. You cannot pump your gas until you go through the series of
Right.
questions.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a big thing, but really, when it's this cold, stop it.
We have no pushback, though. We can
What are you gonna do
bitch
about
and
it?
comand
Yeah.
about this, but it's never going to change, and it's only
Nope.
going to get worse.
It's only going to get longer. Essentially, you're going to be dating a gas pump.
and eventually getting
Pretty
pregnant.
soon, you're going to be married. Yeah.
Do you have any full-service gas stations
No.
in your...
Mean where somebody pumps your gas?
Yeah, there's
Oh.
still a couple around.
Really?
They're very rare, though. And then, of course, you have states like New Jersey where you're not allowed to pump your own gas.
Really?
Yeah, there's no self-serve gas stations in New Jersey, from what I understand.
In the whole state?
Right.
So
yeah.
they have an attendant?
I guess so, just like the old days. Ding, ding.
Honestly, I don't remember that since I was a child.
Oh, you're a Gen Xer, aren't you?
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to get to that, but these emails. And first of all, if you want to send the show an email, it's K Olson, that's OLSON, at garagelogic.com. But the first one we've had for a while, and I really like it, and I'm going to leave the guy's name out of it for reasons which will become obvious. The topic is Lego.
Okay.
And I'll just read it. You mentioned adults doing Legos. I watched a live stream of a naked lady putting together a Lego castle and talking about the people type figures as she placed them. Okay, stop.
Okay.
Amy, I spent 20 minutes looking for this and I could not find it anywhere.
Is that a thing, a naked Lego?
It should be.
It should be.
It could be naked anything.
Wow. Naked.
Putting together a puzzle.
So he's saying that he watched her put the Lego set together, and then as he put the minifigs, that's what Lego people
she
call
was
them.
she was just doing Lego and she was naked.
I don't know what to say to that. Okay.
How
To
about
each his own?
it's a great country.
Wow.
Okay, continuing. Also about borrowing money. I never do. I give money. When my ex-girlfriend moved to Arizona, we were not together anymore, but she asked me to fly down and stay with her while she settled in. We went to a bank so she could set up a checking account. I wrote a check out and asked her to deposit it with her money. Later, she surprised me with $500 that she said I loaned her, but it was a gift. Ex-girlfriend flies down there, gives her money. That's pretty
Wow.
cool. Yeah, that you get along with an ex that well.
Is your name Jesus?
It gets better, Amy.
I mean, that's a nice person.
It gets better.
Okay.
Also, an old ex was going to come down for my birthday and give me and here I changed it to a favor.
Okay. Hold it. And his ex was going to come down and
Give him.
blow his whistle.
And she got a DWI on the way.
Oh, no.
I gave her $1,000 to cover a small part of what she had to pay out.
Well, I have other questions. Like, why was she needing to be drunk and driving to come to your house?
And how awesome is this guy if an ex is going to come down and give you a favor?
I don't. His life is curious to me.
This is very curious.
He goes and does all these nice things for his ex, and then his ex drinks, wants to come down and do him a favor,
Yeah.
and drives.
Yeah.
And gets
this is
a DWI.
This is the first email I've ever received where it feels like I'm sitting in a bar talking to a guy. It doesn't seem like a correspondence at all.
No.
This seems like something a guy would just say to you randomly. And then finally, a couple that I love asked me to co-sign for a loan. I didn't want to do that, but I offered to put $10,000 in their savings account so they could pass the credit test. $10K is a huge amount of money to me, but these are great people. And that's where the email ends. So I don't know how that turned out.
This is somebody who's emailed before. Do you know
Nope,
this guy?
Never talked to this guy ever.
I don't know his name because you didn't tell me, but I'm sort of wondering if he's that nice or if he's full of crap.
I know.
Could he be lying just to make himself? But why would he do that? We don't know him.
And to be honest with you, I printed this email weeks ago and changed his name, and I don't remember what his name really was, and I deleted the email.
That is an odd collection of anecdotes.
Yeah.
About someone who, there's complicated things going on there. A lot of exes involved in their lives.
Yeah. Here's an email, a little more recent. I think we received this at the end of last week. Hi, Kenny. That was a good interview with John Hines. Do you think you could track down Bob Yates and get him for an interview? Maybe even the lovely Mercedes, too. That was such a great show way back then. That's from Ted. And I only bring that up. Normally, I wouldn't bring that up at all. But I only bring it up to stop further emails. And the answer is no. I'm not going to do that.
You know what, though, Kenny? I remember... Was that that would have been the early 90s?
Late 80s into the 90s, yeah.
Because I came back here in 91. I just left for a couple of years for radio, but I came back here and I distinctly remember, and I don't think I've ever told you this, I really liked you on that show. This is way before you and I met. And I remember walking, I was living with my sister. I used to walk through Loring Park in the morning in Minneapolis and listen to you guys. And I have a distinct memory of walking through Loring Park listening to that show with you on it, and I was a big fan. I thought you were great.
That's nice of you to say. I hated me on that show. I couldn't live with myself. I had a hard time living with myself.
Because why?
I don't know. I was just doing and saying all the wrong things. I didn't know how to do the job the way I do now.
You're so hard on yourself. I
thought
thought you were
stumbling.
you're great.
No,
I thought you were
awful.
great.
I got rid of, I had hundreds of hours of tapes, of logger tapes, and I gave them all to radiotapes.com, which is a local service. I told him, meet me down on the street. He's located in downtown Minneapolis. And I just handed him a big, giant box of cassettes and reel-to-reels.
What a treasure trove.
Yeah, and he has put some of them on his website, so you can find tapes of that old show on radiotapes.com.
Well, let me ask you this, Kenny, because I've known you a really long time. Have you ever before or currently, do you do work that you are proud of? That you feel good about?
Rarely.
That was what I feared the answer would be.
Yeah.
Because you are so hard on yourself, and you're just the most lovable, funny, and also such a shut up. You're such a student of this business, which is what I love about you. But your crabbiness is my favorite thing.
But you could always be better.
But you don't. But don't you? How would you have lasted this long if you had no talent?
I think I've lasted this long because I'm too lazy to get a real job and do real work and make real money. I think it's like the rats and cockroaches that survive a nuclear blast. I think that's what it is. It's nothing to do with talent.
I don't think you give yourself enough credit, but I know you're uncomfortable, so let's move on.
One last one. Wifey, and this must be about when we were talking, did we talk about women's perception of their bodies?
Yeah, we were talking about with John Hines, if it's a reference to last week, about if they tell you look great, we don't believe you if you tell us that.
The wife has never been weird about the response, how do I look question. Wait, that didn't make sense. Well, anyway, in the beginning, she asked more to know if something was out of place or whatever. Then one time she asked, then did you, the change thing? And my answer was the standard, yeah, you look great. However, after that time when she asked, I said, you look great, but your ass is kind of fat.
Wow.
And in fact, she does not have a fat ass. And she laughed and laughed and laughed.
Oh,
and now
good.
it's their standard answer.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
And
you know
also
what? That's all you can do with that question is either answer it and don't say one more word.
Yeah.
When we say, do I look good? You go, absolutely, you look great. And you don't say anything else or make a joke. That's awesome.
I always say you could stand to gain some weight.
That's
and
a good answer.
Couldn't you find a tighter T-shirt for those bosoms? I mean, come on. What are we doing here?
Always about the bosoms.
Always.
You know, we were talking about me being crabby about gas pumps, but you're crabby about Gen X.
I'm pretty angry, and it came about in the last month. It's
Okay.
new anger.
All right, I want to hear more about that.
Like if I said, who are the silent generation? Do you know who that is?
The silent generation came after the greatest generation, correct? Greatest generation goes back to World War II. Then there were people that came of age in the 50s.
Oh, my God, you're already confusing me.
Then
According
there's
to the
boomers.
internet,
Okay.
the silent generation was born between 1928 and 1945.
Okay, that's the greatest generation. Too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right now, they'd be anywhere from 80 to 97 years old. The boomers, 1945 to 1965. So boomers right now are anywhere from 60 years old to 80 years old. Gen Xers, and of course, this is always up for debate, the years, but generally speaking, the Gen Xers are born in between 65 and 1980. So we're anywhere from 45 to 60 years of age. The hated millennials are anywhere from the early 80s to the mid 90s. So millennials now are 30 years old to 45 years old.
Wow.
And then we have the Gen Zers, and this, I think your son and my son are Gen Zers, born in the mid 1990s and right around 2012. Okay. So Gen Xers, I'm a Gen Xer, and I really thought we were cool. And then you go to, I have Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and Insta, and I don't follow anybody, so my algorithms determine what I see, random algorithms. And over and over again, I see these Gen Xers on social bragging about how cool it is to be Gen Xers. And when we were kids, we drank from the hose and we never went in the house. And our parents kicked us out in the morning after breakfast and didn't want to see us again until the streetlights came on. And we were rebels and we did things. And we drank, what was that? We drank Boone's Farm. And
Oh, yeah.
Schlitz malt liquor and Schmidt Big Mouth, and we had vodka in our orange juice in our lunchbox, and blah, 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 blah. Gen Xers, you need to shut your mouth. Bragging about being a Gen Xer is the opposite of what a Gen Xer should do. The reason we got away with everything is because we knew how to keep our mouths shut. We didn't brag about leaving a crack open on the school and then sneaking in at midnight and turning all the chairs in the classroom around to face the other way and then sneaking back out without doing any damage. We didn't brag about that so we could get away with it.
You're narking on yourselves. Is that what you're saying?
We knew how to steal mom and dad's car and drive 100 miles to the Twin Cities and be back before the sun came up. We didn't brag about it so we could keep doing it. If you're bragging about being a Gen Xer, and especially telling millennials, oh, you millennials are lazy and stupid, you don't get it, you're doing it wrong. If you see another Gen Xer doing Gen X stuff, you know what you do? You know how you acknowledge each other? Little head nod like this. Little up nod, little down, and maybe a dap, a down low dap. Not high five, not, hey, how you doing?
I mean, just
just a dap, just a fist bump.
Oh.
Tiny little fist bump, down low, so nobody sees it. That's the secret to being a Gen Xer.
You know what I think with Gen X? Let me run this theory by you.
Go ahead.
The boomers, especially on social media,
Yeah.
The boomers they get a lot of attention from millennials and Gen Z for
Yeah.
being, the whole okay boomer
Right.
thing.
Rightfully so, if you ask me.
Totally. The Gen Zs and the millennials get crap for being lazy and sensitive and,
Yeah.
woke and
Yeah.
whatever else. Nobody talks about Gen X. So we have to talk about ourselves, apparently.
I think that's it. I think
we're
you're absolutely
insecure.
right.
I think
And-
nobody talks about Gen X ever.
You're right, because when I looked this up, they say now that millennials are the kids of boomers. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Aren't millennials the kids of Gen Xers?
X?
Yeah. And for a lot of boomers, I now find myself thinking and saying the same thing I did. Remember when your grandpa would say something, it wasn't even kind of racist. It was really racist.
Really racist. Yep.
And you just go, okay,
we don't
Grandpa.
say that stuff
All right.
anymore, Grandpa.
Okay, Grandpa. I now find myself doing that for boomers, going, okay,
Alrighty.
maybe that's not the way we should put it. It's 2025. I find myself doing that a lot for boomers.
So boomers now would be 60 plus, right?
Yeah, my dad's a boomer. Mom and dad are boomers.
And that's a big span, though. 60 plus. So 60 to
60 to 80.
80. That's,
Yeah.
I mean, sounds like they're all 20-year spans.
Yeah.
But 60 to 80, I mean, wow. I just think here's what I just feel like boomers have always thought they were the coolest generation. They take credit for everything. They invented rock music. They protested, even though now, they're all invested in the stock market. They're hippies that are now rich. I mean, honestly, the boomers annoy me the most.
Yeah.
And I think Gen Z and Gen Z and millennials, Gen Z in particular, I love them.
I think that Gen X and millennials are almost the same.
I do too.
Because, okay, I'm X.
They don't think each other's the same. Like my son and your son are Gen
Right.
Z. And if
Right.
I said they were millennials, they'd be not happy.
Right. Very unhappy.
Yeah.
But look at Gen X and millennials. We didn't have computers or smartphones when we were kids. We do now.
Yeah.
I remember the first computers being brought into high schools and them trying to teach us how to do flow charting and nonsense like that. Remember the Apple IIc?
Oh, yeah.
Big square box?
Yeah.
And now, of course, we've got them everywhere. And by God, you're wearing an Apple right on your wrist, right?
Correct. I think that Gen X is plagued by insecurity. Nobody pays attention, and it's a pretty big cohort of people. It's another 20-year span,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And think about it. In the last, outside of the movie in the 90s called Reality Bites,
Right? With Winona Ryder?
yeah, who talks about millennials?
Nobody.
I mean, Gen X.
Gen X, right. Millennials, I'm actually really, really impressed by a lot of the things that the millennials can do and what they've accomplished.
Like what?
Well, there's a guy who runs a YouTube page. He actually lives within 20 miles of me. His name is Zach Johnson. His YouTube page is Millennial Farmer. He's got over 1 million, maybe even 2 million subscribers by now. And the dude is brilliant. He's a hard worker. He gets up when it's dark and he goes to bed and works all day until it's dark. He's got a big farm. He's in charge of a ton of acreage. He farms with his dad and his son. He's also a stock car racer on the weekend.
Wow.
He's a brilliant guy.
So what is is being a millennial farmer different? Does he talk about, is that different than being a farmer of any other gen?
To me, they can adapt. In the case of Zach and all other millennial farmers that I know, they can adapt to computer-operated machinery much better than I can.
Oh, sure. That makes sense.
They can automate their tractors and their combines, so all they have to do is sit there and let the machine do all the work. I am incapable of that. I cannot do that.
And Kenny, I think the thing is, because we have sort of a span of everything from Gen Z through millennial through boomer around this building.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that is different between Gen X, Okay, boomers came of age where there was no computerization, right? Nothing.
Right.
Zero.
None.
Until they got way older.
Right. Yeah.
Like in their
Yep.
childhood, there was nothing.
Nope.
They played with sticks and.
And it's evident too when you get text messages from your parents, and
They're written like in paragraphs.
What the hell?
Yeah, really long, lots of words.
Yes.
It's like a book.
So many words.
Mine would be like my mom, who was a boomer, would be like, "Hi, honey. How is your day going so far? I just woke up and talked to your dad over coffee, and we decided that we might go shopping later today.
Yeah.
Would you like to come with us? Should we come and pick you up? Would you like to come and pick us up? Do you have gas in your car? Are you going to wear a jacket? I don't know what the weather's going to. It was just like, oh my God, this is not a text message. But so boomers grew up with no tech, right?
Right.
And then Gen X is sort of the bridge generation.
We were forced to adapt.
We were without it.
Yeah.
Until probably our 30s.
I remember going to an early website, and it was either NBC, ABC, or CBS, and trying to use it for show prep on the one computer we had up in Maplewood at 1500. The one computer.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I remember working with this guy in the 90s sometime on a morning show who said, I was like, I mean, I've always loved tech, so I was sort of early into having a computer at home and whatever. I wasn't like a programmer, but I said something to him, and he was probably 15 years older, so boomer for sure. I was like, yeah, have you been on, like the internet, the information superhighway? And he was like, yeah, because I really want to go online and slowly read a magazine. And because of the upload speed, download speed was so slow, and there weren't any real useful things to do, except maybe bulletin boards and stuff like that. But then you've got Gen Z and millennials who really are, to your point, coming back around to what you're saying about the millennial farmers, they're digital natives.
Yeah. They learned early.
They have spent their entire life.
Yeah. But they learned early, and they adapted well. And I know a lot of them that are hard workers. For me, I didn't like millennials for a long time because, and this is going to come back to your radio station, My Talk. You, at My Talk, I should say, not you, but the radio station, has gone through a ton of board operators and producers who wanted instant fame and instant fortune and were not willing to put in the work. They didn't even want to work weekends, let alone a holiday weekend overnight. There's no chance in hell they're going to work that.
True.
And they realized after working 6 months that this isn't going to happen, and they quit. And that has been my whole exposure to millennials. And it wasn't until I actually started looking around and paying attention, and I saw that 90% of these millennials are badass. They're really good at what they do.
And I would totally agree with you, Kenny. But what I would say is this, and I have to remind myself of this. You may do this with your son, Ben. I do with mine, Max, is when I was going through that period of time at My Talk, and you and I would talk about it back then.
Yeah.
We were judging kids that were 21, 22, 23.
Yes.
Then I had to remind myself what a dork and what an employee that I wouldn't have hired I was when I was 21. Like, we're judging them in their early 20s.
But wait a minute, Amy. But the difference is with us is we knew what we wanted to do. We didn't care that we weren't going to get paid. We wanted to be in the building, on the air, off the air, doing anything we possibly could to be in radio.
But that came later for me, Kenny. It came earlier for you. For me, I didn't get to radio until I was like 24, 25. Before that, you're going to laugh, I worked in an auto parts store.
Nothing wrong with that.
And I was the laziest person on God's green earth because I knew getting up in the morning I had to go in and separate carburetors and alternators.
Okay. I didn't know we were going to go down this route.
Yeah.
My first job that I wasn't working on a guy's farm was working at Fleet Farm, and you get there in the morning, and the first thing you do is go into the bathroom, shut the door, put the lid on the stool down, and just sit there for 45 minutes doing nothing.
Just burning up time?
Just sitting there. Then you go out to the warehouse, and you sweep a little bit, and then you go find a place to hide for 45 minutes.
And how old are you?
I was 19. It was the summer after I graduated.
Yeah, and I just know that for me,
I was horrible.
I speak for
employee.
myself, but it sounds like for you, I would not have hired me back then, and I would have had the same complaint about me that we had about early millennials. But I think as you get older, you start to get it. You're either going to like step up and do better, or you're not going to keep your job.
Let's take a break, and then I want to end with the best generation that has ever walked the planet. We'll be right back. If you were born between the mid 1990s and 2012, you are aged 13 to 30. You are the best and brightest generation that has ever walked this planet. And I have yet to meet one of you that I don't like. Seriously, these kids these days, and what I love about them is they don't have any clue who Blue Oyster Cult is
And
or Richard Nixon.
Don't care.
They don't care at all. They are so good with technical computer stuff. They've adapted it to their lives. So I'm old school. If I don't know how to do something in my shop, I go talk to people. I look for books. The kids go right to their phone, find a video description of it. The next thing you know, they've got the engine torn apart or the carb torn apart. They don't know anything, but they know everything thanks to the internet. And to me, it's absolutely brilliant. Amy, I would sit down and face something, and I'd be sitting there looking at a piece of equipment or machinery, and I'd think, what would my grandpa do?
Right.
How would he approach this? Meanwhile, my son is standing behind me on his phone, looking it up, going, well, first you take that circlip and you pop that off. Then you get a puller and you pull that bearing off. And it's just brilliant to me.
They are so resourceful, and they know what questions to ask and where to ask them.
Yeah.
I also think here's what I love about Gen Z. They are, and some of this is what pisses off the other generations. They are absolutely unafraid, for the most part, to be authentically themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think back, like, we were so riddled with conformity and trying to be like everyone else.
Yeah.
We were anxious and neurotic about it.
And hiding all my true personality character. Yeah.
I mean, if
Never
everybody
true to
else
myself.
in the 80s had giant hair and giant shoulder pads and ridiculous earrings on, and 17 Madonna bracelets on your arm, then that's what you did. You just, whether it was your jam or not, you're just going to do that.
Yeah.
And we looked ridiculous.
It was a weird group think phenomena.
And
You're right.
And we were so worried about being like everyone else. And I think the boomers were like that. I think Gen X was like that. I think millennials started to break it. But I think Gen Z is like, no, that's not my jam. And it bugs people. But I think they're authentic.
Absolutely. And I've learned this with my son. He's now 25. He had a birthday over the weekend. And my two nephews that are twin boys, and they just graduated high school last spring. And they're just wonderful, bright, really ambitious human beings. My son's got a job at age 25 making money that I didn't make that kind of money till I think I hit 40. You know what I mean?
Because you're in radio, right?
Yeah, yeah. And what really drove it home for me is we call them down at GL, we call the upstairs kids the Mountain Dew drinkers. We don't know who they are.
There are social media kids.
There are social media kids, and they do camera stuff and video stuff and internet stuff. And these Mountain Dew drinkers are absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely.
And we'll sit around wondering, well, how in the hell are we ever going to do that? And one of us, probably Joe, will say, well, call one of the Mountain Dew drinkers down here. And they come down and they explain how the real world works to the old folks. And it's awesome.
And here's what I love about them. And I'll use my son as an example. I'll bet you have an example. I gave him a car that I had since the early 2000s. It's still around, still runs. And it's a cool car. It's an old car. But I gave it to him for his car to drive. And he goes, so he gets home the first day that he had possession of it. And he goes, you know what's so cool about that car? And I'm thinking to myself that it was free.
Yeah.
That it's not a car you could ever afford, even at 20 years old.
Right.
And he goes, you know what's the coolest thing? And I was like, what? And he goes, it has a cassette deck.
That is cool.
And I was like, what?
Cool. Yeah.
I go, why is that cool? And he goes, oh my God, it's so cool. I go, honey, the reason we evolved from cassette decks to CDs to streaming is because if you didn't like the first song on the cassette deck, you had to go and maybe find the beginning of the next song.
Well,
he goes, I
but...
know, that's the cool part. And what I love about that is that they love retro tech. They love it. They love cassette decks. They love vinyl. They love like old cell phones. So they have this appreciation for like sort of the analogness of what our lives used to be, but they can still function in tech.
All of the outdoor clothes that my son wears when he's going to go out in the snow or the hunting in the winter or the cold fall, it all originated from the 60s and 70s.
Right?
He's wearing old wool stuff that still works perfectly fine. It's great.
And the other thing they do is they buy, we have I think Q, our social media guy, Quinn, is 26 or 7.
Yeah.
He one day was wearing a strand of pearls.
Really?
A strand of pearls, a retro shirt that he had on, and this really cool jacket, like with somebody, like a work jacket that has like Bob on it.
Yeah.
On the patch. And I go, what's going on here? And he goes, where I get all my clothes at Goodwill or like thrift.
Yeah.
So he goes back and he goes to these stores and he tries to find clothes from like the 50s, 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
And he goes, this jacket, $3.
We have given Ben all of our old band T-shirts and bar T-shirts. He's walking around in a CBGB's T-shirt from the 80s.
I love
or
that.
old Caboose T-shirts, First Avenue T-shirts.
And he loves them, right?
Oh, yeah, he absolutely loves them.
And what does he like? So when he's dressed, is he usually dressed for like working outdoors?
Yeah.
Okay.
He has an outdoor job in the summer, and he wouldn't have it any other way.
Good for him. Is he up by you?
Nope. He lives in South Minneapolis.
Okay. All right. Because your son and my son met when they were
Little kids.
5, 6.
We were in a parade together.
Yeah.
Grand old days.
And the two met.
Yeah.
They are very different from each other, but of the same generation.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, so that's my favorite. If you're a Generation Z kid, I love you. I got your back, kiddo. And that's really all I have for today, Amy.
I totally agree.
All right, let's go home.